So I was not nervous about sending that, about making that segment, and about saying that up the chain, because I knew that it was true. I knew that it would result in some difficult conversations, right? And the people who here's how it works: the people who work for the people who work for Obama said, Are you sure you want to do this topic? And I said, yes, I am. And they said, well, we're going to really have to fact check it. And I said, go ahead. Right. And then they did, and they couldn't really find anything to object to, and that was the segment that we made.
So the show opens with a scene with you and Barack Obama, who I was quite impressed to see that he actually has some acting chops, because he's playing himself, but he's playing obviously a comedic version of himself. Did he have any oversight, or did his production team have any oversight over what you could or could not talk about in terms of your writing?
So glad you asked this question, and I knew that I would receive this question, and so I've been planning literally the whole show around this question. So the answer to your question is no, not directly. I made it very clear to them from the beginning that the show would not be credible if it was seen as Obama administration or Obama organization propaganda, right? If it was putting across their point of view, and that I would not be interested in making such a show, and that I needed editorial independence so that I could follow my own train of reasoning and my own curiosity where it led. And they agreed to that, and to their word, they stuck to it. There were a couple times I had to remind them to stick to it, right? But that's, no different from any creative process. Yeah, we were largely able to make the show that we wanted to make. I compare it to, it's very similar to when I was making a show for True TV, a cable channel, on advertising supported television. And, this is a show that makes its money from advertisers, right? And we, on that show, criticized advertisers all the time. And sometimes the network would go, oh, we don't know if we like that one. And I would have to go to bat for it, and I would win. And once or twice I lost with True TV, but in that case, I then later talked about that happening on the show, right? Because I was, that's my philosophy. I try to pick big fights, and I try to be transparent with the audience about our process, and I let them know when things don't go our way. And that's how I sleep at night, and that's how I think you can make the only way to make a media product with integrity under capitalism. So I took this challenge very much the same way, that I was like, there's going to be some times that I need to really push for something. I really need to push to do a certain topic. And in fact, I chose topics specifically that I knew I would have to push for, because part of my philosophy is, when I am making a show like this, I like to find the topic that nobody thinks that we can do, that the cynical part of the audience is going to say, no way is he ever going to be able to talk about this. And then I go talk about that thing. So that's my philosophy. I'm happy to say that I think it was borne out in the final product. What did you think?
Well, I at first had, because the opening scene again is with Obama, I had this very strong vibe that this whole thing was kind of going to be a bit of a promotional tool for, say, the Democratic Party, or just spend a lot of time maybe criticizing elements of Republicans, but then you wouldn't really touch on the Democrats, or even specifically Obama. So, and I guess this is a slight spoiler warning, but the entire show's about history. So, I mean, if you are unaware of U.S. history, then this is a spoiler. But I was a little astounded in the Willy Wonka sequence that you actually started talking about Obama's war crimes, including specifically drone strikes and the increase in drone strikes. And so I wanted to ask, like, did he watch this? Were you nervous when you were writing this? Were you just like, I am hoping we can get Obama to miss this one screen, like, or were you like, here's how I should word it to maybe not make it seem as bad as it is? Like, that was actually a surprising moment in the show. I didn't expect that I'd be seeing that.
I appreciate that, and that is what I was specifically referring to when I say I go into it trying to pick the biggest fight that I can, right? Or the fight that I think is most worthy of fighting. But the thing is that, the segment that we do on drone strikes is, first of all, situated within our entire critique of the U.S. government's relationship with technology, where, you know, we talk about how the U.S. government is responsible for so many of the incredible technological innovations that have transformed our lives, like GPS, like the fucking computer mouse, you know, like all of these wild things. That's the first half of the episode is about. Then we reveal that the only reason the federal government invented those things is generally for military technology. Our government's R&D tends to serve military primarily. There's a couple exceptions. The NIH, for instance, we devote a huge amount of money to the NIH, the largest funder of biomedical research in the world. Obviously, that is not military. But like, if you look at where the government is spending its research dollars, you know, the only reason, for instance, we know about the structure of the atom is that the U.S. government was trying to build an atomic bomb, right? And that brought us Einstein and, you know, Einstein and all of them doing like work on, you know, the atomic structure, right? So the best example of that phenomenon in our view and that tension is drones, because like drones are another transformational technology. I'm just talking about the drones that you can go buy at Best Buy, right? That wedding photographers use. But the only reason we have those drones is because of innovations that DARPA made when they were developing the combat drone, the Predator and the Reaper drone. And those drones have been used to kill thousands upon thousands of people, including thousands of civilians. And specifically, it's not just that, you know, the order was given by such and such a person. It's that the technology itself enabled the strikes to be ordered more often. Because if you don't have to risk an American pilot's life, then you're more likely to order an airstrike that you know might not send an American pilot into Syria, but you'll send a drone. Because if the drone gets shot down, who gives a shit, right? Is the thinking of the folks who run our military. So that analysis that I just gave and that we give on the show is extremely mainstream. Anyone who studies drones like understands that this is what's happened. If you look at the entire scope of our, you know, drone strike program, which again increased tenfold under the Obama administration. That was the administration that sort of mainlined it, that took it from a niche thing to a major way that the American military wages war. So I was not nervous about sending that, about making that segment, and about you know, sending that up the chain, because I knew that it was true. I knew that it would result in some difficult conversations, right? And the people who here's how it works: the people who work for the people who work for Obama said, "Are you sure you want to do this topic?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And they said, "Well, we're going to really have to fact check it." And I said, "Go ahead," right? And then they did, and they couldn't really find anything to object to, you know. And that was the segment that we made. You know, look, obviously, Barack Obama is doing a lot of things. He's not creatively involved in the day-to-day of the show. He read every script one time. We had one phone call where he gave us his thoughts. On that call, he talked about a lot of different things, and all of his notes are like, take it or leave it. Here's a thought I'd share. Take it or leave it, right? Said a couple of helpful things, said a lot of things that were way off base and didn't connect. On drones, he said, "Hey, here's what I think," and then proceeded to explain his entire drone program, which was not a new explanation. You can go watch. He's on record with all this stuff. You can go watch him talk about it for half an hour to various news organizations. He's spoken in front of students. A student will get up and say, "Hey, the drone program killed thousands of civilians. How do you explain yourself?" And he will tell you what he tells you. You know, like he's got his answer. He gave that entire answer to us on the phone, and we said, "Okay, we disagree." And then, you know, that was the end of the conversation. So, and you know, and then we shot the segment. So that is, look, if people still want to have a cynical point of view, how could Obama possibly be involved in a show like this? Isn't there a conflict here? I'm happy to entertain that conversation, but you know, to me, it's about the nitty gritty of the creative space that you carve out for yourself and what you can do within that space. And I worked extremely hard in order to create that space for us on our show. And I think the fact that we did that segment is like, you know, the proof's in the fucking pudding, you know?
I know I run the risk of having a lot of people on the left saying that I'm promoting a show, funded by a neoliberal warmonger like Obama or something. But I wanna turn this to the last episode, because this is when I truly felt you had made something special. And this is why I feel the show is kind of a Trojan horse. And if you were wondering what people in chat are saying, some of them are completely agreeing with you and saying like, man, this makes so much sense. I don't understand half the shit that Lance talks about. This, putting things in simple language and leading people to where you want them to be, rather than preaching and being like, capitalism bad, he said the thing kind of stuff.
Place for both. There's a place for both things, right? I'm not against people who are like into the theory and use those words. We create those words for a reason, because they're specific, but that's not my role. That's not what I try to do. But I'm sorry, please go on.
Well, no, but it is really important to make it accessible. And the last episode, your message is something that I've been preaching for so long, which is you feel helpless in the world, and we all do. And it doesn't matter, because everything seems grander than you or larger than you. The federal government, the presidential race, everything. Why doesn't anyone concentrate on small local politics? Because that makes all the difference in your life. Because the things like the police budget, for example, and how they're run, and if they're disproportionately arresting black Americans over white Americans when they use drugs at the same rate, you can affect that at your local level. That was the entire kind of thesis I felt getting near the end. Can you talk a little bit about why that's important to you, why you wanted to direct people in that direction, and then maybe the incredible stories that came out of Philadelphia that really were inspiring at the end of the day?
Yeah, so that episode, came out of my own frustration. We were making the show, in the aftermath of George Floyd's murder and the aftermath of those protests. And, I was sitting there going like, my God, I live here in LA. And 30 years ago, we had protests against the murder of Rodney King, right? Or the beating of Rodney King, excuse me. And it was the same fucking thing. You know what I mean? People have been protesting about this for as long as I've been alive. Why has there not been change? And what do we do when we need change? And so we actually had an entire other episode that was going to be our final episode, and we threw it away because I wanted to answer that question. And the answer that we found was that that change happens locally. That when it comes to criminal justice, which is, the most, for me, it's climate change and it's criminal justice as being the two issues that are the most important. I mean, the criminal justice system in America is it's our greatest national sin. It is such an abusive. It's wrong on every level. The number of people we're imprisoning, the number of people who are being killed who should not be being killed, the way that we treat people who do commit so-called crimes. It's an abomination. And so what can we do about it? And the truth is that the criminal justice system is primarily controlled locally in America. If you were to look at the who is most responsible for mass incarceration in America, it's local district attorneys. It's city and county district attorneys who have enormous latitude to issue whatever sentence they want to whoever comes in. And that's an elected position everywhere in America. We vote for those people. And so we, the voters, have been voting for it, right? I mean, look, I know many people have not been voting for it, but it is like, it's part of democracy, right? Which means it's one of the things that we theoretically can change. And so one of the most encouraging trends that has happened in the United States is that for the first time, we have started to see progressive prosecutors run for these positions. And when they get in, they do things like they stop prosecuting low-level drug crimes and sending people to prison for having, a 16th of weed in their pocket or whatever. And specifically, we found there's this group called Reclaim Philadelphia in Philadelphia. They're all former Bernie Sanders volunteers and organizers. And after 2016, they said, okay, well, what can we do to keep our momentum going? What should we do with all of our organizing? And they found, hold on a second, we can focus on the district attorney's race. And by just old-fashioned fucking organizing, right? Knocking on doors, community meetings, community outreach, they got a new district attorney elected named Larry Krasner, who made headlines across the United States because he was the first one of these progressive prosecutors elected. And he immediately started changing criminal justice in their city. He started, refusing to prosecute juveniles as adults, things like that. And the system immediately fought back against Larry Krasner, right? You had all of his former he fired all the prosecutors, right? And all the prosecutors said, oh, this guy's a bum, we got to get him out of there. He immediately, the press started writing about this guy's crazy, what's he doing, etc. But they were able to also get Larry Krasner reelected because they were so organized and they were connected with the community of people who were affected by the previous DA's policies. And as a result, they are now a political powerhouse in Philadelphia. And they just got a whole slate of, they didn't just get Larry Krasner reelected, they got a whole slate of judges elected too. Like, they are really fucking changing things there. And two of their organizers are now state senators and representatives.
Wow.
And so, like, that to me, I was like, this is the model, right? This is people getting together and making change where they live. And that inspired, now in LA, we have a progressive prosecutor named George Gascon. There's one in San Francisco named Chesa Boudin, who, both of these prosecutors, by the way, are under enormous attack right now. And they're not being defended by the progressives who should be protecting them because of how much attack they're under. But this is how we change criminal justice reform. I mean, it would be, I wish to hell the National Democrats weren't running away from criminal justice reform, and I find it shameful, and I wish they were up there making the case. But the point is, at the end of the day, it's got to be local. And that, the reason I wanted to do that episode, the reason we threw out an entire other episode to do that story, is that this is part of what I've done in my own life as well, my own activism. I like, over the last 5 years, have gotten really immersed in local politics in Los Angeles. And I work in homelessness. I've knocked doors for candidates. I've become incredibly active in my union. And for me, it's been really transformative. I think that a combination of the national political parties, big business, and social media have made us think that the only ways that we can get involved are to donate to the big political parties, to vote once every couple years, and to hashtag on social media. And the fact is, none of those things are where political change comes from. Political change comes from dedicated groups of citizens getting together in meetings locally over and over again to make change. And the proof is, that's how the other side is fucking doing it. That is how we have lost, that is how, the Second Amendment nuts won their case. And that is how the anti-abortion activists have done it as well. Those used to be minority positions. They still are minority positions. But they have been able to bend the political system to their will by organizing locally and being so much more organized than everybody else. So that is what I am trying to urge people to do, is to actually, like, look, it's one, I'm so glad that people are watching you here on Twitch, Lance, right? But let's be honest, we're not changing anything by watching each other talk on the internet, right? No. We're spreading ideas. But the important thing is, after Lance concludes this broadcast, go look up your fucking local DSA chapter, or go look up your local chapter of a mainstream political party that you could maybe show up to a meeting of and, like, try to overturn, or start, if you're in a union, go to a local union meeting, or go to a non-political group, right? I'm also a member of a homelessness neighborhood coalition where we just go and do street outreach and participate in trying to make a better life for our unhoused neighbors. It is so easy to be depressed and angry when all you do is sit at home and scroll on the internet. But if you start going to meetings every week and you meet other people who feel the same way you do, and you guys start talking about, hey, what do we do next? Hey, what if we run someone for this position? And then someone says, hey, Adam, wow, you're really organized about this. Could you help us, like, run our Get Out the Vote campaign? Could you help run a fundraiser next week? Could you do XYZ? You're not going to have time to be depressed anymore. You're going to be too fucking busy. And then when you see something actually change in your city, oh my God, it is incredibly empowering. And you start realizing that is what we do, and we need to roll that and build on that. Sorry, I've ranted on and on, but
no, that was a better rant in how to get actual political change done than like 90% of what like online lefties spew all day.
I mean, look, there's a place for being angry at those in power who have failed us, right? But once you acknowledge they have failed us and we are angry, what do you do next? You know, do you just go on every day and say, you failed us, you failed us, you failed us, do better, do better, do better, right? When you know these people aren't going to fucking do better, right? What do? You figure out how to kick them out and get new people. You figure out how to make the change you want to see, you know? Like, something I hear people on the left talk a lot about is, you know, anti-electoralism, that like we're not gonna like win what we need to just by voting for better people. And I agree with that. And that means we all gotta get out there and actually make the change, you know?
Yeah. Well, like you were mentioning,
and that's what I try to
programs.
encourage people to do. That's now what I try to do. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, you were mentioning multiple programs. Like, it doesn't even just have to be, you know, you're voting for a local organizer in your area. Like, start a community fridge, work for a food insecurity group, food
Right.
Not Bombs, whatever it is, right? Like, it doesn't have to just be politics. But I think the desperation in politics doesn't come from the fact that, like, you can't be politically effective by putting someone like Shama Sawant in you know, Washington. Like, anyone can look and see $15 minimum wage, rent freezes, stuff like that. That does have an effect. I think it's the higher level. We've got this idea, thanks to the way politics is sports, that, like, you know, if we don't win the president, if Bernie Sanders isn't the president, there's no point in voting at all, or the electoral process is moot, right? And I think that's what that episode is really good at. Like, what was the number? 15%, right? You said 15% of people vote in local elections. That's a very easy number to beat. That's a very easy number to get people organized around. You have no competition. There's not a lot standing in your way outside of, you know, banding together.
Yeah. And here's the crazy thing. I mean, I live in Los Angeles. It's a city of millions and millions of people, depending on, you know, whether you're talking about the city or the county, right? It's the most populous county in the United States. I have only spent like 3 or 4 years getting involved in local politics, and I now know like a lot of the people who are like doing it every day, right? I like text friends who are like working on political candidates and they're going to flip a seat, you know? And it's like the world of that is so much smaller than you think it is. Like, in addition to the few number of people who are voting, the number of people who are trying to win those votes is incredibly tiny. And as a result, I guarantee where you live, there is some snoozing dumbass politician who won their seat because nobody was paying attention. And you will be shocked at how easy it is to unseat them. You will be shocked, I guarantee you. And if you can get someone who actually represents your values, now you're not going to change everything in your city overnight, but maybe you can redirect some money, etc. You know. And then yes, beyond politics, it's like, what's the actual activism that you can do? You know, what is the, you know, there's so much that you can do that is not political, that is just literally building systems that will make life better for people directly, simply through your actions.
This is Jeb. Jeb is a pretty normal guy. There's just one thing about him. He likes to put tomatoes under his armpits whenever possible. It's not a kink or a sexual thing. He just enjoys the satisfying feeling of having a few of nature's red eggs nurtured safely underneath his arm nests. For a long time, Jeb wondered if he was alone in the world, one of a few brave souls willing to have to explain why his shirts are so stained for the satisfaction of keeping a few ripe vines safe. He wasn't willing to find out on the internet if there were others like him because he worried about his internet security and search history. That was until he discovered Atlas VPN. Atlas VPN allows him to access internet communities he wasn't able to before, and discovered that he's actually one of dozens of tomatoists globally. Using their blazing speeds, unlimited device protection, and not having to browse with ads and malware, he's now part of a riveting community of tomato parents. And now you can too, thanks to an unbelievable discount being offered when you use the promo code by clicking on this link. You'll receive an outstanding discount of only $1.99 a month for unlimited access to any website around the world. It even allows you to save money on a variety of things, like the cost of fresh tomatoes, by using a different country's IP to save on region-specific tomato pricing. Don't live your life in the shadows. Try Atlas VPN today for the low price of $1.99 a month by going to this link. Your tomato children will thank you.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Just, we are prepared to embark on a mighty jihad in your name. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your humble jesters, attempting in vain to get you to laugh. To our valiant knights of the Round Table, Benji Arnie, Tech Tink, Scary Earth Human, Tony, DM Rivera, Resident Scarecrow, Sir Nickus, Mayred, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Brandon, Words Greenwood. It doesn't matter what I believe, it only matters what I can prove. Egbert Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Daniel Sutton, Coulter Smith, Genital, Quiet 185, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, The Tim Caucus, Multimondi, Trevbot, EXE, Brian Ephraim, Lemmy 101, Anthropophojak, Saren 42, Catherine, Ramon Acosta, Incosin, Agent NDN, Violent Orchard, Political Puppy, La Media Panza, Zach Christensen, Todd Buckingham, and Todd Lajeunesse. We raise our mugs and salute our brave heroes off to another glorious conquest.